Hello and welcome to the latest video, 4 of 5 of the day now. When I did my last top 1000 I did 6 videos spread out over the day. I've never done 5 videos back to back. Okay, on the last video towards the end my voice was starting to feel a bit cracky. So I will endeavour to try and get through this and the last one. So let us crack on, okay, going numbers 20 to 11. Okay, fighter number 20, okay, is the legendary little Hebrew Abe Attell, one of the longest reigning lineal featherweight champions of all time and one of the greatest featherweight titles of all champions of all time. Yeah, good to see you, Paul. This is a bit of a marathon I've started here. I've never done this before, 5 on trot. Well, I ain't done 5 on trot. This is my 4th, but I'm going to try and do it last one, top 10. Now, I might leave that one for this afternoon. No, I can't do that. So Abe Attell, okay, beat 7 world champions. He fought 313 rounds against champions. And Abe Attell beat 5 Hall of Fame fighters individually, fighting 227 rounds against Hall of Famers overall. Now, of course, pre-rating era fighter, so he has 0 fights against rated fighters. And Abe Attell scored 38 knockouts, 12 knockouts in 3 rounds or less, and 1 knockout in the first round. Abe Attell was top 10 rated for 0 years. He had a longest unbeaten run of 23 fights, and Abe Attell was pound for pound rated for 8 years. He had 26 fights against pound for pounders, scoring 12 wins. He scored 2 wins against pound for pound top 3 fighters and 1 win against pound for pound number 1 fighters. And Abe Attell's opposition fought rate comes in at 8 from 18 and his opposition beat rate was 5 from 13. So Abe Attell had 27 fights against champions, including 15 wins, 4 losses, 8 draws with 7 knockouts. He had 17 fights against Hall of Famers, including 7 wins, 3 losses, 7 draws with 0 knockouts. And Abe Attell had a massive 27 world title fights, including 22 wins, 2 losses, 3 draws and a massive 23 title defences. So there is Abe Attell in number 20, kicking us off on the penultimate video. So on to number 19, okay, he scores a little bit highly for me, Fritzie Zivic. I do understand some reasons why he scores high, but still a bit high for me. Fritzie Zivic beat 7 world champions. He fought 255 rounds against champions. And he beat 6 Hall of Fame fighters, fighting 222 rounds against Hall of Famers overall. Fritzie Zivic had a total of 70 fights against rated fighters, and he scored 82 knockouts, 29 knockouts in 3 rounds or less, and 8 knockouts in the first round. Zivic was top 10 rated for a total of 8 years and he had a longest unbeaten run of 24 fights. He was pound for pound rated in my all-time rankings for 3 years and Zivic had a total of 31 fights against pound for pounders, scoring 11 wins. He scored 3 wins against pound for pound top 3 fighters and 2 wins against pound for pound number 1 fighters. And Fritzie Zivic's opposition fought rate comes in at 11 from 18 and his opposition beat rate was 6 from 13. Yeah, Sugar Ray Robinson actually said that he learnt more in that one night than all his other fight nights put together. Robinson said he just knew where ref was at all times. To get them sneaky low blows and hip shots and elbows. So Zivic, okay, had 24 fights against champions, including 8 wins, 15 losses, 1 draw with 3 knockouts. He had 21 fights against Hall of Famers, including 7 wins, 13 losses, 1 draw with 2 knockouts. And Zivic had 3 title fights, including 2 wins, 1 loss, no draw, and 1 title defence. So I think Zivic will definitely drop in my new ratings for sure, due to certain reasons that I won't go into. But anyway, Zivic is 19. When we go to fight number 18, okay, is the great Charles, who some people now say is top 3. Amazingly, 90s, you never heard about him. Charles, okay, beat 8 world except for certain rare people. Charles beat 8 world champions. He fought 228 rounds against champions. And Charles, who was indeed a top all-time great fighter. He beat 8 Hall of Fame fighters, fighting 300 rounds against Hall of Famers overall. Charles had 71 fights against rated fighters and he scored a total of 52 knockouts, 15 knockouts in 3 rounds or less and 3 knockouts in the first round. Now Charles was top 10 rated for a total of 12 years and he had the longest unbeaten run of 24 fights. Charles was pound for pound rated for 6 years. He had 25 fights against pound for pound fighters, scoring 16 wins. He scored 9 wins against pound for pound top 3 fighters and 6 wins against pound for pound number 1 fighters. And Charles's opposition fought rate comes in at 7 from 18 and his opposition beat rate was 5 from 13. I remember when I was having an internet debate, okay, with a guy who said My ratings were garbage because Hazard Charles should be top 5. And when I looked at his top 50, I thought, right, you've got no Maxi Rosenblum in there. A matter he added. A matter that he admitted didn't look very good, actually, when he thought about it. He didn't have Jack Britton in his top 35. He didn't have Tony Canzoneri in his top 30. And he had Jimmy Wilde above Tommy Loughran. I mean, come on. Jimmy Wilde above Tommy Loughran and Emil Griffith, and you're complaining about other people's ratings, mate? That's why when people criticise my ratings, I always say, well, let's look at yours then, and let's see how much sense yours make. Because these aren't my rate. Well, they are my ratings, it's my criteria, but my private ratings would likely be very different. So Hazard Charles, had 23 fights against champions, including 16 wins, 6 losses, 1 draw with 3 knockouts. He had 29 fights against Hall of Famers, including 20 wins, 8 losses, 1 draw with 4 knockouts. And Hazard Charles had 13 world title fights, including 9 wins, 4 losses, no draws, and 8 title defences. So onwards to number 17, it is the great brown bomber Joe Louis, a fighter who I've always said is probably one of the most poised, clinical and precise punchers of all time. And I certainly wouldn't like to fight him when he's there, moving his hands, looking to time a big right hand or left hook on me, put it that way. Joe Louis beat 8 world champions, he fought 105 rounds against champions, and he beat 8 individual Hall of Fame fighters, fighting 115 rounds against Hall of Famers overall. Joe Louis had 49 fights against rated fighters, and he scored 52 knockouts, 27 knockouts in 3 rounds or less, and 13 in the first round. The Brown Bomber was top 10 rated as a fighter for a total of 17 years. He had a longest unbeaten run of 34 fights, and Joe Louis was pound for pound rated in my all-time rankings for 7 years. Now, Louis had 10 fights against pound for pound fighters, scoring 8 wins. He scored 4 wins against pound for pound top 3 fighters and 1 win against pound for pound number 1 fighters. And Joe Louis's opposition fought rate comes in at 4 from 18, and his opposition beat rate was 4 from 13. So Louis had 13 fights against champions. That included 10 wins, 3 losses, no draws with 8 KOs. He had 13 fights against Hall of Famers, not all the same fighters, because Carnera, who was a champion who Louis beat, was not a Hall of Famer. Just a coincidence that's the same. He had 13 fights against Hall of Famers, including 10 wins, 3 losses, no draw with 9 KOs. And Joe Louis had that record busting 27 established heavyweight title fights with 26 wins, 1 loss, no draw, and 25 defences. And people always say records are made to be broken. That shows how great Joe Louis was, because he set an entire set of records that have never been beat. My work colleague made me coffee cake, BL. Oh, you sod. After this top 1,000, I'll be enjoying eating Jordan. I hope you choke on it. I'm joking, but I hope you choke on it. I'm going to be sat here spitting your name out, imagining you going, lovely coffee cake. Anyway, there's the Brown Bomber Joe Louis in 17 when we go to number 16. It is the great old master Joe Gans. Now, Joe Gans beat 7 world champions. He fought 266 rounds against champions, and he beat 4 Hall of Fame fighters, fighting 193 rounds against Hall of Famers overall. Gans had 0 fights against rated fighters, being a pre-rating era fighter, of course, a number that would be very high. He scored 100 knockouts in his career, 36 of them in 3 rounds or less, and 5 in the first round. And being a pre-rating era fighter, Gans was 0 rated in terms of top 10 rankings. Now, Joe Gans' longest unbeaten run was a run of 42 fights. He was pound for pound rated for 9 years. And Joe Gans had a total of 36 fights against pound-for-pound fighters, scoring 18 wins. He scored 2 wins against pound-for-pound top 3 fighters and 1 win against a pound-for-pound number 1 fighter. Now, Joe Gans' opposition fought rate is 8 from 18, and his opposition beat rate is 6 from 13. Gans had 21 fights against champions, including 10 wins, 6 losses, 5 draws, with 7 knockouts. He had 15 fights against Hall of Famers, including 5 wins, 6 loss, 4 draw, with 2 knockouts. And Joe Gans had 21 world title fights, including 16 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw, and 15 title defences. It does have nuts on top. Perhaps you'll get your wish, lol. At least I got an evil chuckle out of you. Oh, you're mocking me laughing. I realised I did it without realising. Right, so I had my voice crack a little bit. So, on to fighter number 15. Okay, it is indeed Muhammad Ali. Okay, now Muhammad Ali beat 10 world champions. He fought 204 rounds against champions. And Ali beat 7 Hall of Fame fighters individually, fighting 137 rounds against Hall of Famers overall. Muhammad Ali had 44 fights against rated fighters. He scored 37 knockouts, 8 knockouts in 3 rounds or less, and 2 knockouts in the first round. Muhammad Ali was top 10 rated for a total of 18 years. He had a longest unbeaten run of 31 fights, and he was pound for pound rated for 11 years. My wife is doing an audio mix of a collection of your chuckles, believe it or not. We hope it puts a smile on your face when it's done. Yes, cheers, buddy. And thank you to your missus. Although, you know, if my old channel were around, on some of them live streams, when I were reacting to comments, she could have got some right corkers. Especially when people are saying Spence is a top 3 welterweight and all this stuff. I mean, some at Bell laughs I used to nearly fall off my chair. There'd have been some corkers there. So Muhammad Ali's opposition fought rate is 4 from 18. His opposition beat rate is 4 from 13. I think I've lost track of where I was then. Yeah, I'll go back just to reiterate. Muhammad Ali had 37 knockouts, 8 knockouts in 3 rounds or less, and 2 in the first round. He was top 10 rated for a total of 18 years. He had a longest unbeaten run of 31 fights, and Muhammad Ali was pound for pound rated for 11 years in my all-time rankings. Now Ali had 14 fights against pound for pounders, scoring 11 wins. He scored 4 wins against pound for pound top 3 fighters and 1 win against pound for pound number 1 fighters. And Ali's opposition fought rate comes in at 4 from 18. His opposition beat rate is 4 from 13. So Ali had 19 fights against champions, including 14 wins, 5 losses, no draws, and 9 knockouts. He had 14 fights against Hall of Famers. You just had to put that in, didn't you? Ali had 14 fights against Hall of Famers, including 11 wins, 3 losses, no draws, and 8 knockouts. And he had 25 25 world title fights, including 22 wins, 3 losses, no draws, and 19 title Lamont Brewster. So Muhammad Ali is in 15. When we go to number 14, it is a fight I find is one of the most underrated fighters ever. Now, in saying that, I don't mean he's better than the fighters above him. I just mean in terms of understanding of his career, very few people have really hooked up on him. And that's a shame. Jack Dillon, who had over a 200-fight career and a busy career as well. Jack Dillon beat 6 world champions. He fought 391 rounds against champions. And Dillon beat 4 Hall of Fame fighters, fighting 259 rounds against Hall of Famers overall. Now, in a laughably reduced figure of 4 fights against rated fighters, of course, due to the fact Dillon was a pre-rating era fighter, his number of fights against rated fighters would be catastrophically big. Now, he scored 66 knockouts, 27 knockouts in 3 rounds or less, and 4 knockouts in the first round. Now, Dillon was top 10 rated for 0 years. He had a longest unbeaten run of 39 fights, and he was pound for pound rated for 6 years. Now, Jack Dillon had 52 fights against pound for pound fighters. 52. He scored 29 wins from that, and that's not counting draws as well. He scored 13 wins against pound for pound top 3 fighters and 0 wins against pound for pound number 1 fighters. Jack Dillon's opposition fought rate comes in at 11 from 18, and his opposition beat rate is 8 from 13. Now, Jack Dillon had 38 fights against champions, including 24 wins, 7 losses, 7 draws with 0 knockouts. He had 26 fights against Hall of Famers, including 10 wins, 13 losses, 3 draws with 1 knockout, and Jack Dillon had 7 title fights, including 5 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, and 5 title defences. 38 fights against champions, 52 fights against pound for pound fighters. 52! But there's one fighter coming in top 10 who beats him. So, On we go to number 13. It is the great featherweight Freddie Miller, the true definition of a world champion, because unlike Pacquiao, who's had most of his foreign fights in America, Freddie Miller fought in over a dozen countries at a time when there were no international flights, I'll add. Okay, so the great Freddie Miller, who was one of Great Featherweight Kings, beat 6 world champions. He fought 245 rounds against champions. And Miller beat 4 Hall of Fame fighters, fighting a total of 130 rounds against Hall of Famers overall. Now, Freddie Miller has a massive total of 88 fights against rated opponents. He scored 44 knockouts, 20 knockouts in 3 rounds or less, 6 knockouts in the first round. And Freddie Miller was top 10 rated for a total of 9 years. Now, Freddie Miller's longest unbeaten run was a run of 55 fights, and he was pound for pound rated all in all for 3 years. Now, Freddie Miller had 15 fights against pound for pound fighters, scoring 8 wins. He scored 0 wins against pound for pound top 3 fighters and 0 wins against pound for pound number 1 fighters. But Freddie Miller's opposition fought rate comes in at 11 from 18, and his opposition beat rate is 9 from 13. So Freddie Miller had 24 fights against champions, including 12 wins, 11 losses, 1 draw, with 0 knockouts. He had 12 fights against Hall of Famers, scoring 7 wins with 5 losses, no draws, and 0 knockouts. And Freddie Miller had 16 world title fights. Yes, he had 13 wins, 3 losses, no draws, and 12 title defences. Pardon that little hiccup. So, on to fighter number 12. It is another of the great featherweights, 2 on the trot. This one is Willie Pep. Now, Willie Pep beat 9 world champions. He fought 228 rounds against champions. And Pep beat 3 Hall of Fame fighters individually, fighting 89 rounds against Hall of Famers overall. Now, Pep had 56 fights against rated fighters. He scored 65 knockouts, 28 knockouts in 3 rounds or less, and 6 knockouts in the first round. Now, Willie Pep was top 10 rated for a total of 12 years, and he had a longest unbeaten run of 73 fights. Pep was pound for pound rated for 8 years in my all-time rankings, and he had 18 fights against pound for pounders, scoring 13 wins. He scored 2 wins against pound for pound top 3 fighters and 0 wins against pound for pound number 1 fighters. And Willie Pep's opposition fought rate comes in at 9 from 18, and his opposition beat rate is 8 from 13. So Pep had 21 fights against champions, including 15 wins, 6 losses, no draws, with 2 knockouts. He had 10 fights against Hall of Famers, including 6 wins, 4 losses, no draw, with 1 knockout. And Willie Pep had 14 world title fights, including 11 wins, 3 losses, no draws, and 9 title defences. So people, that leaves 1 fighter to go, and that fighter in number 11, okay, is the great ghetto wizard Benny Leonard. Benny Leonard, okay, beat 9 world champions. He fought 242 rounds against champions, and Benny Leonard beat 7 Hall of Fame fighters, fighting a total of 235 rounds against Hall of Famers overall. Benny Leonard, in a much reduced number, had 18 fights against rated opponents, and he scored 70 knockouts, 28 knockouts in 3 rounds or less, and 6 knockouts in the first round. Benny Leonard, again in a much reduced number, was top 10 rated for 1 year, and he had a longest unbeaten run that came to 48 fights. Now, Benny Leonard was pound for pound rated in my all-time rankings for 7 years, and he had 26 fights against pound for pounders, half of Jack Dillon's total. He scored 16 wins. He scored 12 wins against pound for pound top 3 fighters and 4 wins against pound for pound number 1 fighters. And Benny Leonard's opposition fought rate comes in at 9 from 18, and his opposition beat rate was 8 from 13. So Benny Leonard had 27 fights against champions, including 17 wins, 7 losses, 3 draws, with 5 knockouts. Leonard had 26 fights against Hall of Famers, including 16 wins, 7 losses, 3 draws, with 4 knockouts, and he had 11 world title fights, including 10 wins, 1 loss, no draw, and 9 title defences. So the great Benny Leonard ends video 20 to 11. Okay, that means 4 out of 5 videos are done. I still can't believe I'm doing this morning. I've never done 5 on the trot before. That's 4 down. My voice is starting to go a bit, starting to feel a bit of a sore throat, tiny little bit. But I've got a bottle of water here. I will end this live stream now, take 5 minutes and come back with the all important top 10. So I'm Boxing Librarian. I'm out for now.